Many thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video. Do you ever find yourself thinking that some photographers always seem to get incredible sunrise and sunset conditions and that you seem to never ever be so lucky? I know I certainly used to think that until I discovered this powerful technique that can really turn your decent sunrise and sunset images into an absolute jaw-dropping spectacle that'll leave your viewers in total awe of how lucky you were to witness such an event. So to jump right into it, this is an image I captured from Olympic National Park, I believe last year actually. And if I come over here to, first of all, I do want to share something with you real quick. This is a quick little tip that I share in random Lightroom videos from time to time, maybe once or twice a year, and it always gets such incredible feedback. So if you ever come over here to the right side of your Lightroom, and you know how you have all these panels open and you kind of gonna go through and close them one at a time, there is a trick that will enable you to not have to do this any longer. So if you come up here and just right click, and this little menu will pop up and select this right here, solo mode. What this will give you the ability to do is only have one of these little panels open at a time. And as soon as you open another panel, the previous panel will close. I'll show you real quick. So I have tone curve open right now. If I come down here to color grading, tone curve closes. If I come down to effects, color grading closes. If I come back up here to basic, and so on and so forth. As I move through these, you'll see that you can only have one of these open at a time, which is an absolute time saver. It's a game changer when it comes to, if you're somebody like me who's like super OCD about organization. So solo mode, if you don't have it enabled and you want to give it a try, definitely do that. I believe you'll really enjoy it. So as far as this technique to really make a sunrise or sunset image just kind of explode off the screen, here it is right here. So if I come over here to the color grading section, you'll see these three wheels right here. And if you don't see the color grading section, you can right click and hit Customize Develop Panel and just make sure that you have the color grading section selected right here. Let me hit cancel. So you'll have these three color wheels and you can see all of them at the same time. If you select this, you can select this one right here. This will only show you the shadows. You can select this one right here. This will only be the midtones. The one on the right will be the highlights. And then you have this global one, which I never actually use at all. So what color grading gives you the ability to do? It's very simple. It gives you the ability to tint a certain aspect of your photograph a certain color. So you can tint the shadows a certain color, you can tint the midtones a certain color, and you can tint the highlights a certain color as well. It's much more powerful than that, and it goes a little bit deeper, but that is the short story of what color grading does. And when you use it appropriately, you can really change the overall look and just kind of the punch that one of your photographs has. So what I would like to do here is if I want to make this, this was already a nice sunset that was occurring, but it could use a little bit of extra pop to it. And if I wanted to use this technique on this image, what you can do is I'm on highlights right now. You'll see highlights right here. And if I select this little square here, these are just kind of these color swatches. So you can select, say, this one right here, and it's going to tint those highlights this nice warm color. But what I like to do is hold down the little eyedropper, and you can see I have the eyedropper right here, and I'm holding down my mouse button. And as I drag this all throughout my scene, if you look at the color wheel on the right side over here, you'll see that it is moving based off of whatever color I have this eyedropper on. So if I want to tint the highlights this cool blue color, I can do that. If I want to tint the highlights this green color, I can do that. But what would make the most sense is to tint the highlights a color that is already naturally occurring in the highlights. So I'm just going to find an area up here, let's just say right over here. And you can see that it's selected that color right there. Let me close this down. Now what you can do is you can increase the brightness value of those highlights. As you can see, as I rock this back and forth, maybe I'll just bring them up just a little bit more to about right there. And I can bring the saturation up quite a bit as well. And as I keep making this more saturated, you can see what's happening as I rock this back and forth. And if I toggle this on and off, you can see exactly what that has done to the overall photograph. Now, that is definitely a little bit overdone. I wouldn't want to do it quite that much, but I'm going to bring it back to maybe a value right around here. And then what's really nice is that you have these blending in the balance sliders right here, which I'll show you the problem that these solve in the next photograph, because this is actually a very simple image to color grade, but a lot of photographs aren't quite this easy to do. But the blending and the balance sliders will really help you kind of fine tune them. But for this image right here, as I rock this back, or I should toggle this back and forth, you can see what that has done to the highlights. It's added this warm tint just to the highlight areas of this photograph. And you can see what I was saying, how this is kind of a, a decent sunrise or sunset image. But when you tint that warmer color, it really just makes that image explode off the screen. And that's a great example. It's just kind of an easier example. The next one's going to be a little bit more difficult. But as you can see on the surface level, it is a very powerful and simple technique. Now, here is another image right here. And this is a perfect scenario of an image that you're going to have to use somewhat more finesse with. So we're going to go through the same scenario right here. We're going to hit highlights. Highlights is selected. I'm going to select the little box here. I'm going to grab the eyedropper. I'm going to drag this over to an area in the sky, and I'm going to select a color. So maybe something like, kind of like this color right here. And let's close this down. You can see it selected that color there. It's on the color wheel as well. As we toggle this back and forth. And what is so nice, like look at the light bouncing off the lighthouse right here. As we toggle this on and off, I mean, it's such a nice result that it is applying to the overall photograph. But herein lies the problem. So the water right here, all of this beautiful splashing is the color white. White is pretty much a highlight. So it's adding that warm color to that water as well. Now, naturally, that water would be picking up some of that reflected sky, but I don't want to add so much of that tint to the water itself. I really just want to add it to the areas besides the water. So this is where this blending and balance technique comes in. So what I like to do is take the saturation of that color we selected and take it all the way up to plus 100. And I know it looks very crazy right now. That's definitely overdone, but it helps me to better visualize what I'm trying to accomplish here. So when I come down to blending, as I rock this back and forth, you can see what that is doing right there. So like this is making it much stronger in the highlights. This is kind of making it a little bit more subdued. So if I bring this value down to maybe right here, and then we're going to take the balance, we're going to bring this more towards the left. When you're using balance, this is putting more of an emphasis on shadows. This is putting more of an emphasis on highlights. So I'm going to bring this down to a more realistic level. Maybe we'll bring this blending value back up a little bit more. And now as I toggle this on and off, you can see that it's not impacting the water nearly as much as it was before. And if it's still too much, you can kind of bring this value down a little bit as well, maybe to something about right there. And as I toggle this on and off, you can see what a difference that is doing. That beautiful light is kissing the lighthouse right here. You can see a lot of that nice warm light coming through here. And you can still see that it is illuminating a little bit of that whitewash in the water. So I'm going to bring it down just a little bit further to maybe about right there and toggle it on and off. And you can see what that has done right there. And that's what I was saying, that's the reason why I like to crank that saturation all the way up to 100%, because I'm going to really refine it and pull it back to try and isolate it or try and remove it from that whitewash of the water. And I think that this is starting to look much better. And it's a subtle change, but if you really pay attention to the sky up here in the lighthouse, as I toggle this on and off, you can see what that has done. And it's really, really made a nice, subtle, yet powerful change to that overall sunset. Now here's another image right here, which is not your classic sunrise or sunset photograph, but this is once again a fantastic opportunity to use this color grading technique, because it's just going to make a lot of those highlights a little bit warmer. And I think this is a absolutely fantastic photograph to do this in, because obviously this was captured in the fall. This is in Colorado. And that light kind of raking through these beautiful golden aspen trees, it just created a very warm glow, but it didn't quite translate that way through the photograph. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to once again select highlights right here. We'll click the little color swatch. I'm going to drag my little color dropper over to an area near the sun star. So maybe something about right here. As you can see, it's just barely warmed. Maybe we can warm it up just a little bit more to about right there. And when you look at it, it doesn't look like a whole lot was done, but this is where the power of the toggle, the on-off button comes in. So as I toggle this on and off, before and after, and you can really see that difference right through here if you really pay attention to this, before and after, before and after. Now you might be asking yourself, Mark, there was also a shadow option and a mid-tone option. There is a cool trick with the midtones. I'll show you right now. So there is not, if you come up here to the basics section, you have the ability to, update shadows. You also have the ability to update highlights, but you do not have the ability to update midtones. There is no midtone slider inside of Lightroom. But if you come down to the color grading section, you have the ability to select midtones right here. And if you come down to luminance, this gives you now the ability to increase the brightness level or the luminance level of your midtones. You can make them brighter or you can make them darker. And if you look at the actual midtone section of the histogram up here, which is right in the middle, as I rock this back and forth, you can see what is happening to those midtones. So if I want to increase the brightness level of those midtones, I can just bring it up to maybe plus 19 or plus 20 and toggle that on and off. And now I tinted the highlights, that beautiful warm color. I also increased the brightness of the midtones as well. And I personally find the midtones to be an extremely, extremely powerful aspect of the histogram. And a lot of times, since I generally like to underexpose my photographs, I usually do need to increase just the brightness level of my midtones. And by using this kind of little midtones trick inside of the color grading section, it's a fantastic way to do that. Now you can also tint the shadows a certain color as well. So if I come up here to shadows, if I select a little color swatch here, we maybe select a cool color right here. As you can see, it tinted all of this nice kind of cool color. And if you think about it, that's definitely overdone in my opinion. But generally speaking, especially in outdoor or landscape photography, your highlights are going to be coming from the sun and the highlights are generally warm. And shadows are generally cool. They're also complementary colors on the color wheel. And the human eye loves complementary colors. They just kind of mesh well together, especially cool tones versus warm tones. So this is another great way to not only add a little bit of creative flair to your overall photograph, but just to use those complementary color palettes, which is always a good idea. So I can make that saturation of that cooler tone very strong and is only applying it to the shadow regions of my photograph, or I can just kind of bring it down to a very, very minor level to maybe about right here. And if I toggle the entire color grading section on and off, this is before and after, before and after. And that's just a fantastic way just to get a little bit creative. Maybe you've come up with your own creative style by tinting your shadows a certain color, tinting your midtones a certain color, or tinting your highlights a certain color as well. So I hope that information was helpful. Before I do wrap up everything here though, I just want to say a quick thanks to the sponsor of this week's video, which is Squarespace, who I use for all of my website and e-commerce needs. Squarespace provides a robust and beautiful online platform to develop your website. You can showcase your photography using Squarespace's new blueprint design system to help guide you through the options to building your online presence from the ground up. You can even display your photography using Squarespace's flexible website design templates and customize the layout in order to make it your own. And with Squarespace's online store feature, you'll have access to all the tools you need to start selling your physical goods, digital content, or service products online with ease. So if you're looking to start a new website or possibly upgrade your current website, check out squarespace.com/Mark Denney for a free trial and 10% off your first purchase. So as you can see, the color grading section, there is a lot you can do with it. But for my workflow and for what I have used it for the last few years, it is mostly used to tint the highlights. I very rarely ever tint the shadows or tint the midtones. I do, however, like to use that luminance slider as a way to increase the brightness level of my midtones, but I rarely ever tint the midtones a certain color. But I will almost always, when I use this technique, will go over to the highlights section and find a warm tone in the sky, generally around the sun or wherever that beautiful sunlight is coming through, and use that naturally occurring color just to emphasize that color just a little bit more in that sky. And it is an absolutely fantastic way to just make that, just to like I said when I kicked off the video, to kind of make those decent sunrise and sunset photos just kind of stop you in your tracks. Like, whoa, that must have been quite an experience to witness. So it just kind of adds that little bit of pop to your photograph. So I do hope that little tip was helpful. If you have any questions about anything covered in this week's video, please leave those in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to get back in touch with you as quickly as humanly possible. And as always, I really do appreciate you checking out this week's video and spending a little bit of time with me here today, and I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye.